Hi everyone, Euphony Cantano here, the internet's busiest music nerd, and it's time for a review of this new 070 Shake record, You Can't Kill Me. This is the sophomore full-length album of singer, rapper, songwriter, producer 070 Shake, a record I've been looking forward to since I heard the futuristic blends of rap, R&B, and pop on her debut, Modus Vivendi, in 2020. It's also hard to talk about Shake and not also talk about Kanye West too, especially since her work with him has been such an exposure point for her. You can also hear the DNA of Kanye's modern musical works in her music so clearly, especially with Mike Dean being such a consistent collaborator. His fingerprints are all over this new LP too, in the vocal layering, the guitar solos, the abstract analog synthesizer sections, which were all very present on Modus Vivendi as well. So present they almost felt like the main focus of that record, and I went away from the album hoping that whatever we heard next maybe got a bit more attention on the songwriting side, because the snappiest tracks from that project that have stuck with me over the years are the ones that were the catchiest and most cleanly put together, not so much the ones that felt lost in the haze of effects and synth layers they conjured. And honestly, You Can't Kill Me is kind of more of the same, but I suppose a bit better given that the vocal layering and synth layering does reach higher this time around. The overall presentation is grander. The atmospheres and world that Shake's music presents on this record just feels more vast, feels more endless, easier to get lost in, especially since many of the songs on this thing are winding or very linear and don't really emphasize a super detailed structure style. Much of the momentum built up on these tracks will often melt into a bridge of dense psychedelic synthesizers or effects, or maybe a sudden transition that switches up the vibe and instrumentation of the track entirely. In a way, what Shake is giving us on this record is like an endless feed of the grand introductory or transitional moments that we've been hearing work effectively within Kanye's music for years now. But again, Shake has somehow distilled things down simply to just those moments without giving us like some really meaty verses or groove changes or drops that like really make all of this building tension worth it. Many of these tracks, as grand and as well mixed and produced as they are, often end up feeling like fleeting listens, because Shake and her collaborators never really put a pin in whatever direction a song may be headed in, so there's not a really cohesive song at the center of everything to guide all the energy going into the synths, going into the effects, going into the finer details, going into the mix. Examples on this LP being Web, Medicine, Blue Velvet, the song Invited To. These tracks come through with a really great otherworldly sound, but they just continually reach really weak and indirect conclusions. Take also the song Come Back Home, for example. With its downstroked guitars and steady beats, Shake's very bold vocoder vocals, lyrics also in her interest with a secret lover who she's describing. It's not a bad tune or start to one, but as the track progresses, it really doesn't so much feel like it's about Shake or anything that she's saying, and it's more about the huge layers of John Carpenter-esque synthesizers that are kind of coming through and swallowing everything else going on, including Shake. And yeah, sure, it is a very grand display of sound there at the very finish, but it completely obliterates the song in the process. So yeah, consistently on this thing, Shake's vocals, melodies, and general songwriting are not nearly as grand or as impressive or as abstract as the instrumentation they are surrounded in, which again was also the case on Modus. But that difference I think is even clearer now with the synthesizers and effects and everything just reaching much more mountainous highs. Now with that being said, there are some songwriting peaks and pop-offs on this thing that I do enjoy. It just so happens that they're more the exception than they are the rule, like the heavenly synthesizers, bold brass and strings, and passionate lead vocals laced throughout the song history. The booming beats that break in soon after make for one of the most epic shifts on the entire record as well. The song Skin and Bones has a solid progression as well. Not only does it remain engaging through the first leg, the middle point, but the rush of synthesizers at the very end is a really gratifying finale. COCOON, I think, is one of the closest things we get to a banger on this record too, with its hypnotic rap flows and driving bass line. Yeah, instrumentally it may kind of melt into oblivion at the very end, but it's still one of the more direct spots on this record if we're accounting just for the way it kind of begins and progresses toward the middle. Vibrations as well takes a little bit too long to get going, in my opinion, but I think Shake's flows and beats on this cut make for one of the snappier spots here. Also, I love how aesthetically the vast atmospheres on this track and trap backing beat make me feel like I'm listening to a combination between Enya and a SoundCloud rapper. The song Stay also tries to push things higher, but I wonder if maybe this one is going too far because it feels like Shake is extending beyond her reach a little bit, because as her vocals begin to soar against the really huge hits of horns right after the intro, the flight is shaky, to say the least. So yeah, unfortunately, I'm just not really seeing a whole lot of progress between this LP and the last album in terms of what were just so obviously the shortcomings of that record. For sure, there has been some improvement on the layering side, on the production side. This is an album that is much more dense than the debut, much more, I guess, vast and cinematic than the debut. And while these elements are great in some respects, they're huge, they sound amazing, they are really well recorded and engineered, it just feels like Shake is steering a bigger ship with only just about as much of an idea as to where she's going as she had on the debut, and I think that is not adding up into the most solid journey this time around. I'm feeling a decent 2 strong 6 on this one. Transition, have you given this record a listen? Did you love it? Did you hate it? What would you rate it? You're the best, you're the best. What should I review next? Hit the like if you like. Please subscribe and please don't cry. Hit the bell as well. Over here next to my head is another video that you can check out. Hit that up or the link to subscribe to the channel. Anthony Fantano. 070 Shake. Forever.